You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Doctor, tell me true. What's a heart like mine supposed to do?
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So, when President Donald Trump survived the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, all eyes were on this Thomas Crooks. And Thomas Crooks was some 20-year-old punk, no criminal history. But he knew how to evade police, Secret Service. He knew how to ascend a building, get on the roof, bear crawl, and get within meters of the president. Then I'm watching this Tyler Robinson trial, preliminary trial, and you're listening to all the semantics and all the procedures he went through, figuring out how to do what he needed to do to allegedly shoot at Charlie Kirk and assassinate him, being able to hide weapons, stash it, jump from the building, and I'm looking at these people. So when going back to Thomas Crooks with the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting, we still don't have a lot of information, and I'm really kind of shocked by that, because you would think in this day and age we would. And so this whole time I've been assuming he was an Iranian plant, or somebody got to him, as Iran, again, from what we have learned from Israel, is trying to assassinate Trump again. And we keep thinking that there's some outside militia force that's training these people. And no, they're learning how to do it in your house. They're in your basement. They're learning how to become assassins. The information, sadly, is so ubiquitous that they are learning how to do the unthinkable. And I'm really frightened by the fact that this is something that there's if they're doing it within your home or in our neighbor's home, or you would think we would have a better alert system, a better way to find this. And the fact that they could access this information online, and we've seen time and time again, I think with the Brown University shooting, was it the person used Google or ChatGPT or something to figure out when would be the most ideal, when there would be the most students, when would be our computers, our AI are teaching the future assassins. They don't have, and what makes this really, really difficult is we want to predict and prevent the next mass shooting or the next assassination. And so when we profile, which we have kind of been taught don't do, because you don't want to get innocent people caught, profiled and in the crossfire. But when we look at the makeup of some of these individuals, you're like, okay, well, they might have had a past, they might have had run-ins with the wall, they might have had some, like the Uvalde shooter had, some history, and so you're trying to predict who could be the next person. But this Thomas Crooks, nobody heard of him. There's Tyler Robinson. Nobody heard of him. And you're hearing, all the work he went through to try to make this happen. And you're like, how did he learn how to do that? Who taught him? Now, the good news is we could figure that out. There are digital footprints. There are digital paths. You could see what conversations they had, who they spoke to, what they searched. All right, we should be able to very easily get this information with Tyler Robinson and the Charlie Kirk assassination. Tyler Robinson allegedly involved in the Charlie Kirk assassination. They were able to access Discord. They were able to access his chats and conversations, the texts when he asked his roommate Lance Twiggs to erase the text messages. So there's ways where we could access the information. Still, we don't know what the hell's going on with Thomas Crooks. We don't know. We don't have hardly any information on that. And that was a close call for President Trump. So I'm not really sure what the Secret Service knows, what the government knows, and the fact that we're being told we don't have much on him, that I just find that hard to believe. But for those of you who have children that, you might not necessarily, know too well, will you learn your children, please? And I understand it's really easy when they're 3 years old or when they're 5 years old, but then once they become teenagers and young adults, they seem to be a completely different person. But if the next assassin is doing it and learning it in your home, you are going to have a lifetime of despair and guilt, and your life will not be the same. And so you need to get off your ass, get off the couch, and figure out what the heck is going on with your kid. Even if it's even if it has nothing to do with you feeling like they're going to be the next assassin, just, are they depressed? Are they anxious? Are they not learning how to support themselves, how to feed themselves? And I know people play video games and, I like my Candy Crush, and sometimes I'll play a little bit of, Fortnite and Call of Duty and things like that. My kids like to, get me into GTA, and I just, that's kind of, nah. But I see how video games are. Trust me, I was a Ms. Pac-Man whiz. So I get video games, and I'm not saying anybody playing video games is going to be an assassin, but just take a look at the stories and take a look at how we are just having regular, non-criminal teens or adults just, I figured out how to do this. I learned how to do this. And they're proud of it. And something is teaching them. Who's teaching them? What are these sites? And if somebody accesses these sites, shouldn't that ping the radar? Somebody is trying to learn how to stash an assault rifle. That's got to raise some red flags. Somebody is looking at and learning distance. Learning how to shoot and hunt, that's our constitutional right. But if they are, scoping out, schools and universities and student unions, or where a future president, is campaigning, this has got to raise red flags. So we need to figure out how the hell these people are learning how to do this stuff and stop it. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So Charlie Kirk's assassination alleged suspects trial, preliminary hearing has been going on. I'm surprised it's going on so long. There's so much evidence against him. And if you remember, he turned himself in the day after the shooting. But what was very interesting in yesterday's testimony was his former roommate testified. He got use immunity, which I believe is where what he says can't be held against him, but charges can still be brought against Lance Twiggs, the roommate. As opposed to transactional immunity. And I'm not an attorney, so I'm sure attorneys could explain that a lot better than I. But use immunity allowed him to feel safe enough to go ahead and give testimony. And actually to probably help protect him, because otherwise he could be an accomplice if he knew and didn't, turn Tyler in. And so we got to hear his testimony on Zoom. Got to see it happen. And it's interesting what he said about Tyler Robinson and how he acted, following the alleged assassination. Here's a little clip from that.
Didn't go into detail. I just asked him in person if what he said was true the night before, and he said it was. I started crying a little bit and said he wishes he hadn't done it. And then kept going around and just doing stuff, I think, to keep himself busy or distracted or something.
So Lance Twiggs told prosecutors and kind of described what was happening the next day. And then Twiggs said eventually he said he would talk to his parents or turn himself over. So he probably thought that he had this all down pat, and then he felt like he couldn't get the weapon. The weapon was found with the blue towel around it. And it was, there was DNA evidence on it, and he kept watching the news and kept watching reels and following social media to see what was going on, in the aftermath of it. And once he probably realized that, he was cooked, it was, he turned himself in. This preliminary hearing, is, from what I understand, a little bit longer than what most preliminary hearings are, especially with this much evidence. You have alleged DNA evidence on the with ballistics analysis and the DNA on the gun and the bullets. We have him turning himself in, which is obviously huge. And then we have his roommate and the text messages where he goes back and forth with Lance Twiggs about why he did it. Lance Twiggs was asking, "Why did you do it? Why?" And as he, and so this, alleged confession to his roommate is huge. He faces several charges, the top one being aggravated murder, a capital offense. I believe today is the final day. There was a lot of back and forth with his defense team to throw out, evidence to not allow there to be the transparency. They didn't want jurors tainted, by this, but I'm surprised that this, if this guy pleads innocent, I don't know what the defense plan is. There's just so much, evidence that has been showing. And Lance Twiggs, being his romantic partner, he was asked, how did that happen? Apparently, Tyler Robinson moved into his apartment. It wasn't until a few months later that they decided to start dating. He said that the day of the shooting, Tyler Robinson wanted to leave early, said he was going to leave early for work. Early meant maybe 4 or 5 in the morning, when the prosecutor asked. and Tyler Robinson leaves for the day, and then he's, gone for a period of time, and then ends up coming back and just, worried about the gun, worried about, his, serial number. Just everything seems to be kind of talked about and hashed out in these text messages. So a lot of detail. Judge Tony Graff is presiding. People have been criticizing him. But as I look at it, is if at all there's any missteps, the defense is looking, what the defense is doing, because they know that Tyler Robinson's in deep. What they're looking for is a way to get something thrown out, to get mistrial called or something that can give them the edge so Tyler Robinson does not get the death penalty, or even try to even get this case thrown out. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the judge is being very conservative. He's being very, very calm, cool, collected about it. I don't think that's going to happen. So, a member of Tyler Robinson's defense team had interrogated the DNA analyst from the FBI to look at the techniques they used to connect Robinson's rifle found wrapped inside a towel. In fact, I think there was DNA of both Robinson as well as Lance Twiggs, but more of when they, because it was Lance Twiggs' towel, once they filtered that out. And the defense lawyer tried to cast doubt on the DNA analysis. This keeps coming up, saying that you can't match Mr. Robinson. I think they were also trying to look at fingerprints on the glass of the building that Tyler Robinson tried to jump from. There wasn't any, from what I understand. So, I mean, it's interesting to watch for me, but you're looking at this going, I don't understand why it's taking so long. Tyler Robinson had some very interesting bullet engravings, and it kind of shows, allegedly Tyler Robinson did, kind of shows how sick, some of this was. Like, catch, he had some up arrows, down arrows, LM, AO, or laugh my butt off, acronym. And apparently he asked Lance Twiggs, his roommate, for the little, what they call a turret, to engrave on the bullets. He told him that he was doing it for hunting. And his roommate said where they could get the tools. Apparently they had a lot of tools because they worked in, I guess, trade jobs, and they had, a lot of tools, like a lot of people do. And so they really spent a lot of time on these bullet casings and on there being intent to write something. That the reason why those bullet casings are so important is because it shows the intent and the premeditation and the planning that went into this. So depending on, the idea that defense might say this was a temporary moment of insanity, and he just like with, I guess, Luigi Mangione, they tried to do that with the United Healthcare CEO shooting of the CEO alleged shooting, where Lance Mangione, they tried to consider a insanity claim. And that I think would start a whole different process that could, I guess, get him in trouble because they're trying to plead not guilty for Luigi Mangione. So it's just the semantics of the games that they're playing. These are just, it's law is fascinating to me, but I couldn't do it because if somebody's guilty and somebody admitted to doing something, turned something in, you got DNA evidence, to try to get them off on a technicality, when they murdered a father and husband, that shouldn't happen, but that's where we are. And the reason why this process exists is because you have some individuals who are innocent and the system could be screwed against them, and there's supposed to be some fail safes and some protections and safety nets. And that's why we have to have a legal, ethical, judicial system in place. But when it's something like this, and it's like, well, let's see how many games we could play and stall routines, that's a problem. I don't know how Erica Kirk is able to sit and listen to this. I would be like Erica. I would be there. And I mean, I would be staring this guy down, and I would be praying. Apparently, she's holding her rosaries and praying, and I to give her strength through this. And I don't blame her. That's got to be difficult. But you're just watching this kid, this Tyler Robinson, who turned himself in, but is still, innocent until proven guilty. Just sitting there, motionless, expressionless, with all this happening, and you wonder, what is he thinking? Is he sitting there going, yeah, or is he sitting there going, gosh, I was stupid. I shouldn't have told Lance anything. I shouldn't have texted. I shouldn't have. Does he regret it? Do we think he regrets it? I don't think he does. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Hi, everyone. Super Bowl champ Vernon Davis here from Legal Help Center. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up, because we have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. You can find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. The call is free. The consultation is free. And you can speak with a live agent right now. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident of any kind, call now to find out if you have a case and how much you could potentially get.
Thanks, Vernon. You heard it, folks. If you've been injured, call and find out how much you qualify for. Call 800-679-0800. That's 800-679-0800. 800-679-0800. Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states. Not available in California.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So for years, we've been telling people that, there's birth tourism and birthright tourism in the U.S., where China, Mexico, people get these packages where they get to come into the country, stay in a beautiful hotel. They have to get here in their later months of pregnancy, and then deliver here to make their child an American citizen, and then them become an American citizen. And listen, look, as a mom, I understand, how parents will do anything for their child. But if I tried to do that in Canada, Japan, Germany, Morocco, you'd get deported or get thrown in jail. So, for America to be the only country saying, okay, we'll let that happen, it's overwhelming. Well, looks like somebody caught on to a hospital allegedly selling birthright packages in Texas. And so Texas Governor Greg Abbott has now ordered an investigation into a hospital. The hospital is near the Mexican border, and there's billboards saying, come to South Texas, have your baby, and pay one set price. The hospital advertised the packages in Mexico, but they said it did nothing illegal. How much did they charge for a vaginal delivery? $3,950. A C-section, $5,500. The alleged hospital is Mission Regional Medical Center, and they referred people to a website called Have My Baby in Texas. I believe that website is now taken down. And it's in the Rio Grande Valley, and they did confirm that they have a campaign advertising cash, which a hospital can't technically do. Offer cash prices for deliveries. They can do that. But if they're advertising across the border, saying come across to Texas and have your baby in Texas, that's starting to stink of that's not following the laws. The website's offline. Marketing materials are no longer being used. The hospital, according to The Hill, says it advertises its medical services just like other hospitals and will cooperate with the state. But Governor Abbott, said the campaign appears to have targeted foreign nationals who wanted their children born in the United States. Under the 14th Amendment, as you know, children born on American soil can get U.S. citizenship at birth. The Supreme Court upheld that. Governor Abbott said in a statement, Texas will not permit our healthcare system to be used as a magnet for birth tourism. He ordered the Texas Health and Human Services Commission to investigate whether they violated state law or any of its contractual obligations. And State Representative Brad Buckley said there is nothing in the U.S. Constitution that requires the state of Texas to use state tax dollars to direct state employees to create state documents and then hand them to illegal aliens. So Governor Abbott wants any potential violations referred to the state attorney general for civil action and local prosecutors. There's a legal pathway that I think some of these places have figured out, and based on the 14th Amendment. And it might be difficult for them to fight if tax dollars are being used. If there is, and again, I'm no legal expert in terms of this, is obviously, but as a physician, when somebody came into our hospital and they were, in emergency labor, and you delivered them, no questions asked. That baby was born. They got a birth certificate, and they're American. I mean, it's all about saving the mom and the baby, and that's what we doctors and we hospitals do. Where there is a little bit of opportunity in terms of prosecution is, are they advertising for there to be illegal immigrant activity? Are they incentivizing that? Is that so? But a hospital offering cash prices and competing with other hospitals for you to have your appendectomy or your C-section, or that's legal. But, but as I said, did they violate certain state law? So what do the lawyers do now? They're going to comb through. That's what law does. They're going to comb through and see where they don't like what they did. And they ping the radar. They got the eye of mortar on them now. And that was kind of stupid. Have my baby in Texas. That isn't, Texas hospital is number one. That is have my baby in Texas is suggesting somebody come into their state. Now, did they advertise it in nearby New Mexico? Did they advertise it in Nevada saying, why don't you come to Texas and have your baby here? No, if they specifically advertise it in Mexico, that's, there's intent there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from a legal standpoint. Now, Trump, of course, weighed in on Truth Social going, you see, this is a crime. Therefore, the Supreme Court's ruling is wrong. I will be asking for a rehearing by the United States Supreme Court immediately. And in the meantime, the House is, I believe, submitting a Birthright Citizenship Clarification Act to codify President Trump's executive order. House Representative John McGuire, who's a freshman, introduced the Birthright Citizenship Clarification Act to codify President Trump's executive order seeking to limit birthright citizenship of the jus soli, or the right of the soil, a legal principle. The 14th Amendment was to help the slaves who were abducted, kidnapped, raped, forced into slavery. They were finally freed through the Emancipation Proclamation and what we now celebrate with Juneteenth. And so the government, U.S. government, gave them citizenship and their children citizenship. And that's what the 14th Amendment was for. It wasn't for medical tourism and birthright tourism. So I'm not sure how far this will go. The Supreme Court ruled that the executive order was unconstitutional. However, it's because of how he did it. The Congress is allowed to change the federal statutes. So Trump can't override an amendment, but Congress can amend the text or change it. So the justices rejected it not because they hate Trump or whatever. It was if they really look at the law per se, he couldn't with his executive order override the amendment. Like you can't with an executive order override the First Amendment of speech and things like that. So on a technicality, that couldn't go through. But if Congress goes, look, we're going to clarify what we did for slaves with the 14th Amendment so that we don't have this sort of chaos going on, they can do that. The Congress could do that. So the legislation, according to the Hill, was introduced by McGuire, aims to amend 301A of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which states that any person born in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction automatically acquires U.S. citizenship at birth. They said if there's a mom who was here illegally, it will not grant citizenship to the children if the mom's here illegally. If they're here legally or they're going through the process, that'll protect them. But if they came over the border illegally or they aren't here through proper, then that's an issue. Now, they said it would also strike citizenship for those who are children of a mother with lawfully temporary presence and a father without citizenship, as well as other less common situations like children born on a foreign ship or children of foreign government officials. McGuire said American citizenship is a privilege and an honor that must be protected. So I know there's a lot of concern for these kids that are 20 years old that have been here now for 20 years. Parents might have come here illegally and they have a birth certificate. I don't believe they would get deported. And I don't think that's right. I don't think, you could deport somebody, who was, living here for years and, has already been a part of the American, but we do need to stop the future ones from happening. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
Back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So if a car maker is making a driverless type of model or self-driving model, are they going to want to spend money for a steering wheel and a brake? Now, I would say yes. Okay. spend the money on a steering wheel and a brake, so at least there could be a manual override if anything goes wrong. Didn't somebody just get killed because one of these driverless vehicles ran into a house and killed the person inside? We're not there with that technology where we could trust it 100%. If it gets stuck, if it goes the wrong way, we need to be able to override and use our human instinct. But no, apparently some regulators are looking at why do we need the steering wheel? Why are we paying for the clutch? Why are we paying for the car? Should know when to reverse, when to. No. I want to drive. I want to drive. In fact, the biggest regret I have is I don't have a manual. I don't have a stick shift. I really miss driving stick. I love that. My truck and oh my gosh, that was driving. Now it's like, okay, I turn the wheel. I want to drive. I want to really feel it. So apparently on an interview on CNBC Squawk Box, the head of the nation's auto safety oversight, Jonathan Morrison, the administrator of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, says he supports innovations in autonomous vehicles, including doing away with some features that are currently mandated, i.e. brakes and steering wheels. He says if you're developing a vehicle that is designed never to be driven by a human operator, does it make sense to require manual control of the vehicle? He says, I think the answer is pretty clear there. Yeah, the answer is yes. Well, yes. Yes. You have to have are you going to do that with a plane? You know, they want to remotely operate our planes. You're not going to have the ability for somebody to be able to jump in and, set the flaps and drop the landing gear and do what they need to do. So they say some self-driving cars, like models intended for ride-sharing fleets from companies like Uber and Tesla, are already steering in that direction. They're not designed for human driving. Waymo can be taken over by a remote human driver. Removing brake pedals and steering wheels would mean that you could not take over yourself. You would have to rely on mission control. What if the car stalls? What if it's in a dangerous situation? So one thing, so let me just tell you really quickly here. They say makers of autonomous vehicles have been urging action on changing requirements for driverless cars since 2019. In 2022, NHTSA revised rules for some types of self-driving vehicles and how they must be designed. So now this is looking at, brake pedals and steering wheels. He's not responsible for policing the industry, but there now, there might be, sort of regulations that might change. One image, I need to find this video. I don't know if I posted it, but I got to find this video. It's a robot. I think it was in Japan. I'm not sure. And the robot was dancing in front of an audience. And its moves were really human-like. And you're watching this and you're like, that is incredible. That's like a human. And it's able to move and do whatever. Well, then its foot hits one of the steps. It falls. And then it lies there limp, like it's dead. Something as simple as a little misstep couldn't function. And that's the issue with technology. How many times has your iPhone not worked? You're like, what's going on? Maybe I need to shut it down and reboot. Or my computer not working. Or how many times do I have to take a hammer to something? Tech has a lifeline, just like humans do. And what if your tech or your battery or something is about to die and you don't know, or it's acting up? We always have to have the override. And then, just in general, what's happening with our kids? So for me, learning how to drive was imperative. And I had very, very strict parents who didn't want me to drive, before I moved out and when I was 18 and stuff. Not because they thought I was a bad driver, but they were really overly protective. But thank God, school required driver's ed. So they had to let me do driver's ed so I could learn how to drive. They taught me, they tried to do teaching or whatever, but man, you go to driver's ed, you're like, all right, I'm ready to drive. And they really didn't want me doing that, but they went along with it and taught me a little bit and stuff. But I wasn't able to, get my first car or do most of my driving until I was over 18. And then one of my buddies taught me how to drive stick and all that. And it was in the Thomas and Mack parking lot. They didn't have those those cement dividers. And so it was just all flat asphalt. And I really credit the Thomas and Mack parking lot for allowing me to learn how to drive stick. I had it down in 5 minutes. It was really easy, really natural for me. But these kids, they're Ubering. They're getting rides. They're not purchasing a car because it doesn't make sense to purchase a car if you could Uber or if you don't have a job. And I really worry then, what are we doing now with driver's ed? I mean, we have to teach people to follow the rules. The idea of learning how to drive isn't just so you could go to the tailgate and you could go to the game on Friday night. It's teaching you a lot of different functioning. You have to follow rules. You have to learn the rules. You have to be aware of your surroundings. It teaches you safety. It teaches you about drunk driving. It teaches you about impaired driving. It talks to you about how to protect people in your car. There's a lot you learn at driver's ed. And if we're starting to see schools go, well, yeah, we're going to the autonomous car, nobody's driving anymore. No. We need to teach everybody how to drive. I think we all should learn how to operate a tractor. We should learn how to operate farm equipment. We should learn how to operate things. I am blown away that people can't even use a dishwasher in their house. What is going on? And so, yes, an autonomous vehicle, I think back to Total Recall in the 90s, where you had that taxi, and the taxi told you what to do, but then the taxi started to act up. I remember my husband going, that's what I want. I want to just hop into a car, not even think about it, be able to sleep, and it just take me home. And we're getting there, and we're actually already there. I just don't trust it. And I have never had a piece of tech that didn't fail on me. I've never had software that didn't fail. There has been glitches with any single thing I've had in the last few decades. And then you want me to trust my children or grandchildren later in a car? I don't have grandchildren yet, but I'm going to want to drive them around, and I'm going to want to do the driving. Now, are people idiots? Do you have some people where they can't drive? Do you have some people that don't follow the rules or are impaired, or you have people with disabilities? We do need the technology, and I think that would be extremely important to be able to have that technology where if somebody wants to get somewhere, they have the ability to get somewhere, when they can't drive. So I am still in support of us having, this exist. But for the love of the Lord, don't not allow there to be that manual override. We're not there yet. We don't trust it until you can prove to me that my laptop can last forever, and it never does. Or that my car can last. You need to tell me that, well, cars never last forever. All right? Well, then when it starts to act up, am I going to, how is that going to look? And am I going to be on the middle of a highway? I live in Southern Nevada, and we have the 215. And nobody drives the 215, with the exception when there's traffic, lower than, 65, 70 miles an hour. That's not when I want my car to start its demise. And you need to prove to me that and don't just say, well, why don't you just, turn it in after 50,000 miles or after 100,000 miles? No, that's not good enough. And then that's also very expensive. But for those of you who have kids that don't drive, teach them how to drive. Get them driving. Get them. There's so much you learn. And have them get a driver's license, even if they don't have a car. Just do it. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.